Hello YouTubers, today we're going to take a look at the Spyderco Stretch in the VG10 blade steel. This is my newest knife acquisition. Now as most of you know, I had the Endura 4 in the full flat grind with the same FRN handles, but I kind of thought to myself that it was slightly too large of a folder for me to carry around. The handle did feel good in my hand, but I just kind of thought that it was just a little bit too big. So I started thinking about it and I said, well, maybe I could go with the Salt or possibly a Delica. But after holding both of those, I found the Delica to be too small, and the Salt really wasn't my style, or wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So I came across the Spyderco Stretch, and I'm really liking it. Now, one of the things I really like about it is the way that it locks into your hand. Just locks in really, really well. It's a grip that the Endura did not have because of this guard right here to keep your finger from going onto the blade. It's really, really defined, and your hand just locks into place. You can also choke up onto the blade. As you see, there's jimping on the bottom of the blade as well as the top. And it's really grippy, really catches onto your finger if you wanted to do some fine detail work. I really like that. Now, most of the other features on this knife are very similar to the Endura. It's really not that much smaller of a knife. Unfortunately, I don't have the Endura to show on screen with you guys right now, but I will say that if I laid the Endura right next to the Stretch, you'd maybe only notice 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch of a longer handle. But the actual blade length is very similar. They say that the blade length on the Stretch is 3.5 inches, but when I compared the Endura to the Stretch, it almost seemed like they were pretty close to the actual blade length. The difference is the cutting edge, but the total blade length really was pretty similar. The blade shape is just a little bit different. You see this design on the top of the blade. It's kind of curved, and it's not straight downward as the Endura is. And I really like the design. I really like the feel of it. Now, one of the things that caused me to buy this knife or start looking at it was YouTube user Jay Davis. A lot of you probably know of him, but he was doing a cutting demo with this knife in the ZDP 189 blade steel. And it cut really well. And to me, of course, the steel that was on the knife is important, but I really liked the grip. It seemed like it really locked into his hand, and he wasn't having any issues with it. You know, the angle was just perfect. He was cutting things downward like this. He was cutting some rope, and I really liked that. I really thought that it cutted well, so I wanted to pick up this knife. Now, there are a few downsides to the knife, one of which is the price. Now, you can pick up an Endura 4, which in my opinion, I'll just say this up front, I think that the materials are pretty much the same on these knives, the Endura and the Stretch. You know, the only difference is maybe the design of the blade, but it seems to be the same blade steel, the same handles, the same materials. But there's going to be a price difference for the VG10 model of the Stretch and the Endura of about, generally speaking, $20 plus or minus a few dollars. And I was kind of uncomfortable spending that. If I had to give it one hit, that would definitely be it. The fact that it's more expensive than the Endura when there's less of a handle, less of the steel to make the blade. But I do understand that the style is more sought after, or it's more of a, I won't say collector's item, but it's just a better design, or a more unique design, the actual blade shape. But other than that, I think that I really wish Spyderco and other knife makers too didn't do that. The biggest example I can think of is if you want to pick up a Delica and an Endura in the same steel, you're going to pay just as much for the Delica as the Endura at most outlets, most stores, either online or in person. And I kind of have always had a problem with that, just because it's the same knife, just in a smaller scale, and why would you have to pay the same amount? But if I had to give the Stretch one knock, that would be it. I did notice that the Spyderco hole, the deployment hole, is larger on the Stretch versus the Endura, and I like that. It's easier to deploy. But I will say that even with this pivot screw right here loosened, the blade was a little stiff coming out. The action wasn't quite as quick as the Endura. Now it has loosened up a little bit, or it has gotten a little more silky smooth, but I can still feel that it's rubbing somewhat on the handles, even when loosening up the pivot screw right there. You can just tell that it's not quite as smooth, the deployment. Not that I think that's going to be an issue at all over time, but the lockup was really tight, both front to back, of course, and side to side. I don't feel any blade play, and it deploys pretty fast when I do it right. There you go. Now, cutting performance, I did do a cut test in one of my past videos for you guys, so you can see that the factory edge was extremely sharp. And I'll go ahead and see if I can do a close-up for you to see what it looks like, but it's just extremely sharp. As you can see, it's not a mirror polished edge, but you definitely could get that if you wanted. But they really sharpened it well. So overall, you guys, I'm really happy, really pleased with this knife. I'm glad I picked it up. The pocket clip's really sturdy, just like all of the Spyderco knives. That's pretty self-explanatory. So if you guys like the style of this knife, and you don't mind spending an extra $15, $20 as opposed to the Endura or the Delica, then you might want to take a look at the Spyderco Stretch in the VG10 steel. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you later.